I am here with Dr. Jonathan Corren at UCLA Hospital in Los Angeles, California, which is one of the main focal sites of the CATNIP cat allergy study. And I am dying to learn more about how it's going in LA, how many people are involved, how other people can get involved, and why this study is so important to those who have cats and love them and are hideously allergic and spend all their time with red eyes and runny noses, or those who wish they could have a cat or wish they could have a cat if their partner has an allergy. Dr. Jonathan, it's so great to meet you and so exciting to have you part of this quite pioneering, revolutionary kind of allergy study. I've never heard of anything quite like it.
Well, thank you for having me, Tracie. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
So is this a very unusual study to study allergy in this way, where you're recruiting participants who have a known adults over the age of 18 who have known for at least 2 years that they are allergic to cats, and recruiting them to join in this experiment, which uses, as I understand it, but I'm only saying this so that I can say it in lay language and then you can say it in doctor talk, the traditional kind of shots that you get in an allergist's office, plus a new, if you will, secret ingredient that may increase the usefulness of such injections.
The idea of giving people gradually, incrementally increasing doses of allergen to treat their allergies goes back a long time, probably to the turn of the last century. But the idea of adding something else to it, just as you described, the secret ingredient, which is actually a new medication, which blocks a specific chemical that's very intricately involved in the allergic process. So this combination of this new medicine plus conventional immunotherapy is a new approach, and we have very, very high hopes that it may be effective.
And in engaging UCLA and some other very prestigious, very important hospitals and research centers across the country in different geographic locations, is one of the reasons to do it, I don't know that you even know the answer, to do it in a hospital setting because you are a clinical researcher and this is where the best medicine is studied, as opposed to, I don't know, in a private allergy clinic or something? I mean, the National Institutes for Health is part of this study, or is backing it, or is approving it, right?
Yeah, this study is being coordinated by an organization called the Immune Tolerance Network, which is a group of scientists and clinicians whose goal it is to develop new therapies for a number of different immune-related disorders that people may have better long-term prognoses with these diseases. One of the group of diseases that they look at is allergy and asthma and related diseases. The other part of this is the National Institute of Health, who have provided the funding and some of the leadership to accomplish this study.
Which I would think, as a potential participant, if it were me, I would think, well, that makes me my mind at rest that this is a smart study, a good study, a valuable study, and a scientifically valid one, because the National Institutes for Health does not put their stamp or their money behind just any old thing. I mean, hardly anything, just guesswork, right, or totally experimental. They obviously must really believe in the science behind it, as must you.
Absolutely. This study was about 2 years in the planning. A large group of people from the Immune Tolerance Network, from the NIH, in fields of immunology and allergy, and then in collaboration with, as you just mentioned, a group of people, investigators from National Jewish Hospital, Northwestern, Johns Hopkins, University of Wisconsin, and a couple of others nationwide. And the reason we picked those exact centers was to provide the expertise that each of these centers has. So it's not so much that they're hospital-based or university-based, but in terms of people that have worked with the immune system and worked in clinical research, we thought that these were the very best people that we could find throughout the country.
So while we who are talking about it, who are cat lovers, cat owners, would-be cat owners, while we would think, oh, well, this is great, but wow, that's an awful lot of energy and work to put into just letting someone have a cat comfortably, it clearly goes way beyond that. And the reason I say that is because while anybody listening that has cat allergies and would love to reduce or eliminate them if this is successful and would like to participate in a trial in which their expenses are paid to get to your facilities and they don't pay anything for it, they're part of an experiment because you may be finding the key to unlock hideous, life-threatening and life-altering diseases which also have an allergic component, right?
That is correct. what we know about existing therapies, medications, many of which are very good and will relieve symptoms of allergy and asthma. The problem with that is that as soon as you stop taking the medication, the symptoms come back. We have immunotherapy, which we talked about a little bit. People get increasing doses of allergy shots. There's another form called sublingual immunotherapy, which is getting some traction throughout the country as a potential good therapy. The problem is that even when these therapies are given for several years, people may stop them and have a period of time where they're free of symptoms, but very often the symptoms do come back. And what we're really trying to do with what we think is a hallmark study, by combining the immunotherapy plus this new medication, is trying to determine whether we can develop tolerance. And what tolerance means is that a person goes through therapy, they stop the therapy, and the symptoms don't come back. Hopefully for a very long time, potentially maybe even, for a person's life. That's what we don't know. In this particular study, we'll be looking 1 year after stopping therapy in order to determine whether they're still free of symptoms when we challenge them with cat allergen.
Okay, so I'm a person who appears to, and I think many other people listening to this may have been true of, that as I got older, I had no known allergies as a child or as a young adult, adolescent, even in my late 30s. I developed symptoms that it took 12 years for them to identify as celiac sprue disease, so gluten intolerance. I began to have environmental allergies that seemed to be to cats, dogs, and mold and dust, to the point that it's now 25 years of weekly shots and 2 medications, and I can't tell you that the symptoms are still there. I have red eyes and a runny nose. And I'm allergic to cats more than I am to other animals, and I get injections that are for dog allergen but not against cats. Would I be a candidate? And if this were to be successful, would it tamp down my other allergies? Because there are many people who are allergic to cats who may have other immune system issues. Does it calm the whole immune system if it's successful?
Well, this is really specifically about cat. And keep in mind that as a clinical trial, people will be receiving a number of different possible therapies. They may receive a placebo as part of the study. They may receive the cat allergy shots as part of the study. Another group will get the cat allergy shots plus this new medication.
Oh, I see.
And the final group will get the new medication all by itself. So it's a very carefully controlled, experimental situation where we can really try to define which of these various therapies is really making the difference. So people will do this in order to participate, in order to advance science, because we think that the information and the knowledge that is to be gained from this is immense. And for that reason, we think it's a great opportunity for people to participate. As an individual, there's certainly no promise that somebody will cure or improve their allergies. It's possible some people will get better, and that's certainly very important. But moreover, we look at this as an opportunity to be involved in something that in the future may have a profound effect on how all physicians treat this disease and these diseases. And everybody with allergies may be the beneficiaries of the knowledge that we're going to gain.
So if someone's doing it, there is an altruistic aspect. I know this is just an irony, but many, many, many years ago, I doubt you were even in medical school yet. You seem fairly young. I was at UCLA being studied by a marvelous doctor there who was studying Graves' disease, and something was terribly wrong with my thyroid gland, and it turned out to be not just Graves' disease, but Hashimoto's thyroiditis. And so over the years since, my thyroid gland kind of self-destructed, but I had an antibody titer that was so high they were not able to suppress my thyroid gland in this study. In fact, they were convinced I had done it wrong and had to redo it, and they found this antibody titer that was such a generalized kind of antibody titer, I guess, that down at Harbor General, which, as you know, is very far away from UCLA, they asked me would I go and donate blood because they were doing a study that needed somebody with, very high antibodies in their blood. And I was happy to do it because I thought, well, I could be changing somebody else's life or helping someone else's life. We don't get many opportunities to do that in the modern world. We can donate blood. That's about it. So I'm thinking that this is something that people I would hope that people, even if their personal, call it selfish desire, is to be able to be around cats more, that they would see it as a chance to really advance human medicine in a way that could save lives and quality of life. For some of the diseases that have been mentioned are lupus, but there's other even horrible ones like what are some of the other things that the other horrible life-limiting and life-threatening diseases that might be affected if this were to work?
Well, if this were to work, some of the clinical problems that we would really target would be potentially life-threatening allergic asthma.
Right.
Asthma affects 7% of the population. Children are even affected to a much more, in a disproportionate way. Up to 25% of children will wheeze sometime during childhood, and hopefully will outgrow the problem, but many will continue to have it. Some people will get better, and then in their adult years, in their 30s or 40s, may have this, really life-changing recurrence of the disease where it can be disabling. Another example would be severe allergic eczema, where every square inch of a person's body can be affected with crusting and redness and itching, and a kind of problem where you can't go out in public, where there's severe symptoms that keep people awake at night, keep them from enjoying some of the commonplace pleasures.
Right.
Yeah, anything, exactly.
And asthma, when I think about the childhood rise in asthma, it's found a lot in inner cities where there's poverty and these children don't have clean air, or there's environmental contaminants, and those children's lives are sometimes ended by asthma. I mean, it's a really serious problem. Anyone who's ever had to have a puffer or an inhaler knows what it feels like to feel like you're suffocating. I mean, that's what it's like.
That's absolutely true. Asthma is probably one of the most common chronic diseases of childhood that can have profound effects on quality of life, but also in some cases can be fatal. We still have people throughout the country in certain communities, because of exposure to allergens, because of lack of access to care, a variety of reasons, you can have just terrible outcomes. Some of the big allergens in that disease would include cockroach and dust mites, but also animal dampers.
Yes.
Dogs and cats and mice and all kinds of things that create an allergic response. And our whole therapy and what we're trying to accomplish in this study will really potentially in the future focus on not just cat, but a variety of allergenic triggers. And people with those problems, will hopefully benefit from this.
Now, when I used to have kitties, which I don't because I got dogs that made the cats' lives in jeopardy, there were people who would come into my house, and it wasn't even a matter of putting the cat in another room. They had to take an antihistamine, and they had to use an inhaler. So is a cat allergic population a good one because the symptoms are immediately visible, if you will, and I guess also manageable? Or do you then at some point expose them to cat allergen in order to see how they do later on? Do you give them a cat to pat? I mean, how is it planned?
These are good questions, and the way we picked cat was because it is a common allergen. When you look at large numbers of allergic patients, that is probably one of the most common allergens that causes sensitivity. And in some of the groups of patients that have been looked at, up to 60% of people are sensitive to cat.
Wow.
And it's a huge thing, and you have to keep in mind that, millions upon millions of Americans own cats.
Yes.
Or they're exposed to them through family members and friends. And we also have information that because cat owners are so numerous and they go to workplaces and public places.
Exactly.
People track in cat allergen on their clothes. They then sit down at a chair or sit up against some kind of a upholstered furniture. That sticky allergen will then adhere to wherever they sit. And it can be to such an extent that they've done studies in Europe where children will go to a home or a workplace, themselves not owning the pet, and will have symptoms directly attributable to cat allergen just from having somebody been in the room for a number of days or weeks that brought the allergen with them. So this really is an allergen that has tremendous impact and a lot of effect on a very large number of people.
And also, what about peanut allergy? Is that an allergy when you think about childhood and life-threatening for sure, and very difficult for mothers trying to make cookies or kids trying to find food to eat? When I was growing up, peanut butter and jelly was like the ubiquitous food. If this study is successful, will it be helpful in something like a food allergy, or is that a very different mechanism in the body?
Well, that's a good question because there is a different mechanism. But we know that people who are exposed to foods as they're going through the first year of life, if they're genetically predisposed, will start to make these IgE antibodies. IgE is the type of antibody that makes a person allergic. And as they go through the first into the second year of life, they'll start to acquire these antibodies. And we're seeing this at an ever-increasing rate. If you look back a decade or two ago, you had less than 1% of the population being sensitive to peanuts. And over the last couple of decades, it's in the neighborhood of 2 to 3%. So it's something that's advancing very quickly, and that does concern us. There have been some recent studies, actually, that came through the Immune Tolerance Network and were published in the New England Journal of Medicine in the last year, which, you know, most people would acknowledge as one of the best journals in the world.
Yes.
Which has shown us that if people are exposed to peanut early in life, that they, in fact, earlier than we're giving it to them now, may, in fact, develop some protective immunity, you might call it, and would therefore not develop the kind of peanut allergy that we're seeing. But once peanut allergy is established and we've missed that window of opportunity to prevent the disease, then we do look for treatments and we do look for potential long-term ways of preventing life-threatening attacks of anaphylaxis and other events that are associated with peanut allergy. And this might be one potential way of combining oral peanut allergen in the future with an experimental drug like we're using in this study, which might, in fact, have effects on the long-term manifestation of food allergy.
So someone hearing this thinks, you know, I would do that. I'm near UCLA. Or if they go to Cat Allergy Immune Tolerance Network. Anyway, I'm going to say the Immune Allergy Network incorrectly, the website, but I'll have it to go with the podcast of this show. And they say, okay, I'd do that, and I understand it if you didn't live really close to one of these places, whether it's UCLA or Johns Hopkins, that travel would be covered to get you there because they want as many willing, correct subjects as possible. Is there a chance that in our lifetime, or in a shorter than our lifetime, I mean, what's the length of this study? How soon could somebody think they were part of something that really made a momentous difference if this succeeds?
We're actively enrolling subjects right now. We're probably about 20 to 25% enrolled, so there is ample space for patients that are interested in participating. There is a website, Cat Allergy Study.
Cat Allergy Study, yes. I knew somehow that there was something after cat allergy.
You were very close. You almost had it. And that's something that they can just type in and learn a lot about the study and find out how they can participate. You know, I mentioned a couple of places, L.A., Chicago, Baltimore. There's a site in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, in Seattle, Washington.
Chicago, I think.
And Denver, Colorado.
Yes, there's a lot of good locations, but you need more people. So maybe people think, if it was me, I think, I'll do it. I mean, I could do it. I am allergic to cats, and I haven't been treated for cat allergy, and there are no cats in my life right now. But I guess if you could describe what the experience might be like for a patient, because somebody might think, oh, it kind of sounds scary. I'm going to be a guinea pig or a lab rat, or, okay, I go into a big, giant UCLA hospital, and what are they going to do to me? I mean, what is it going to be like? Is it people will have, I don't know, blood taken, shots given? What is the experience going to be like to kind of demystify it? Because going into a big hospital, a lot of people are kind of hospital phobic, scared of seeing sick and dying and dead people, or afraid of needles, or, you know, obviously if you're needle phobic, it's probably not the study for you. But what is the experience like? How often does one need to come, and what is involved? I want to sort of humanize it so they go, oh, you're going to meet Dr. Jonathan. He sounds really nice. Okay, that's a good beginning. And then what happens?
Well, I could say that through most of these centers that we've talked about, these will be in outpatient clinical research centers. Our own site, for instance, is about a mile south of the UCLA campus.
Oh, I'll be darned.
Research center. And so people aren't going to have worries that they're going to be next to an intensive care unit with, morbidly ill people who are very, very ill. This is going to be something where, for the most part, many of these centers are going to be having patients very much like your listeners who have allergies to a variety of things, are interested, and they'll come to the center, whether it be in Los Angeles or one of these other participating sites, and the first thing they'll do is meet a study coordinator. They'll read a description of the study, so there's absolutely no kind of pressure to be involved. They'll have a very good idea of what it is they're becoming involved in, and we'll understand the procedures. We'll talk to the physician who is involved at that center, and if they decide it's something that they would like to do, they go through a screening visit where they have a skin test, and a breathing test and a physical examination from the physician. Certainly none of these things are paid for by the patient. These are all provided to them as a benefit of the study. Blood is then taken. It's analyzed for a variety of things, primarily what they're allergic to. So they're going to learn
interesting, because
about,
that's the best kind of, so you get a skin test like you might at the allergy doctor, and then you get a blood test that goes beyond that. Those are the kind of the gold standards, right?
Right. So they'll have a blood test, and then they'll go through what we call a nasal allergen challenge. And this is basically, we take a spray bottle, we put a small amount of cat allergen in it. The patient will have a squirt put into the nose, and we will grade their symptoms. And they'll have things like itching and sneezing and runny nose and congestion, and we establish how much allergy the patient has in this way. That procedure takes about 30 to 60 minutes. People will be a little bit stuffy, but certainly it's nothing really arduous for the patient. And we will then be able to decide if the patient is a candidate for further engagement in the study. If they do qualify, they'll come back for another visit where we will do a similar kind of a procedure. We'll give them a little cat allergen. We'll measure through a lavage where we collect some of the fluid from their nose, find out what kind of chemicals their body specifically produces in response to this nasal allergen challenge. That visit will take a few hours, and then henceforth, as they go through the study, they will receive one of the study treatments, whether it be the immunotherapy for cat in combination with the new medication or all by itself. There will be 4 different treatment groups, and this will go on for a period of about a year where they have active treatment. In the early part of the study, they have to come in weekly. After about 3 months, it starts to become a monthly visit. And then between the first year, end of treatment, and the very end of the study, which is at the 2-year time point, they are just observed. They don't have to go through any additional therapy. And at the very end of the study, we then again measure their response to cat allergen. So all told, they'll undergo, if we include all the challenges, I think it's about 5 challenges over the 2-year and 2-month period. And we will measure blood along the way. And for the most part, they'll receive medication, and we'll observe them to ensure that they don't have any kind of an adverse event. And what we found for most of our patients is they learn a lot about their disease state. They have a lot of support from the staff at these various centers. And I would have to say that people that are doing this really enjoy it. And I think it's been a very positive experience for most people.
It seems exciting. It seems like something exciting to be part of. Have the people that have already joined you, are they people with severe cat allergies who really want to have a cat, or somewhere a milder version of those two issues, how severe it is and how much they want to have a cat?
Well, some of the patients in the study actually have cats. We allow people who are cat owners as well as people who don't have cats. For the people that don't have cats, I would have to say that you hit the nail on the head. They're hoping to get some kind of benefit, or at least help develop a product or a new therapy that will make it easier for cat allergic patients to own pets in the future. For the people that have cats, they have active allergy. They're also hoping for maybe some kind of a modification of their existing symptoms so that their life might be a little more pleasant. But again, as we said repeatedly, we don't know what kind of treatment people will get in this study because there are a variety of different groups. Both the patient and me as the investigator are blinded to what they're going to be receiving.
Which, if anybody knows how clinical trials works, knows that it's done that way so that there's no subjective misinterpretation by the clinician, so that someone can be getting nothing at all, or it could be getting just the existing cat medication or the new one or a combination, and you don't know if they're in group A, B, C, or D. So that whatever happens, you're neutral. But what I guess that the person that's really hoping for a great result, and do you tell them at the end of 2 years which group they were in, or has it remained forever a secret?
We would, in most studies that we do through a clinical trial type basis, we're able to break the blind. After everything is said and done, after we have results, much of the time, although not always, we're able to divulge to the patient what it was that they got, because most people are interested and they'd like to know.
Yes, my husband was in a cancer clinical trial, and nobody was told before, during, or after, and it was like, you'll never know. And that clinical trial was for a cancer drug that didn't, in fact, go to the next phase. But it's sort of frustrating. You'd like to at least know, well, you know, were we shooting blanks there, or was there something potent in there or not? But I guess really for the person who winds up in the group that gets nothing, just a placebo, a fake version of the real deal, they shouldn't feel sad, because if the drug is successful and it comes to market, then they were part of getting it to market and they'll have access to it.
Yes, and I think that's a very important aspect of clinical trials, is that, you know, it really is something that you're doing, you know, for the entire population. And it's in a way for yourself, because this is what helps develop new medications. If nobody takes part in clinical trials, then we would never have new
That's
medications.
Right.
And we look back over the last couple of decades of things that have been developed, not only for allergies, but antibiotics and heart medications and cancer medications. And all of this is based on the devotion and commitment of people like your listeners who are interested in really doing something that will make a big impact on the world.
Well, if 60% of people are allergic and only some percentage of them are so cat crazy that they will live with those symptoms to live with a cat, think how many more cats don't have to be in a shelter. Because most cats that people adopt come to their back door, they go to a shelter for them. It's not so much of a purchase situation. You could empty the shelters, because millions of more people would like to have cats than who have them. And probably the ones who don't have them are the ones that fall into the allergic symptom category. So in terms of the cat population, which is not the highest concern of a medical human doctor, there'd be a lot more kitties in homes if people could comfortably have them there. So there's a million reasons from the cat's point of view, from the cat lover's point of view, and from the big medical picture of if it works, you know, saving people from really debilitating and life-threatening illnesses, along with, I mean, people could die of a cat allergy. I mean, you could have anaphylactic shock. You could, right? There are people who are so cat allergic, their throat closes up, their lips get numb, and their tongue is thick, right?
This last week, I've seen two people who very much want to own cats, or they moved in with somebody who owns the cat, and the cat is going to be staying in that particular house, who have had such severe asthma attacks, they've gone repeatedly to the emergency room.
Wow.
And oftentimes people can't avoid the situation. They don't know that a pet is present in a particular home. Increasingly, what we're seeing in the workplace is that people are bringing in pets, probably more so dogs than cats, but in some occasions we're seeing cats, because people now are working in these large open workspaces.
Yes.
You've probably heard about this.
Sure.
And a lot of people are now telling me that, you know, whereas before they were in pet-free environments, now increasingly I think we're seeing pets in environments, and people, I think, have to be prepared and equipped to be able to, you know, tolerate these kinds of environments.
And many dog owners who might bring their dog into a dog-friendly workplace, they have a cat at home. So that same person has cat hair somewhere on their person, or cat saliva, which is where a lot of the reactive allergen or antigen is. And so we all have to prepare ourselves, gird ourselves, and make ourselves desensitized so that we don't get sick in someone else's home or workplace or even a restaurant, and more cats can come live with us. Dr. Corren, it's been great talking to you. I certainly hope that there are listeners who will go to catallergystudy.org and learn more about it and feel comfortable picking up the phone to any of those phone numbers that are on there. These centers, UCLA in particular, but all of them, are very welcoming, very eager for new participants. You will be welcomed with open arms, and if all goes well and you are the right kind of reactive person and otherwise healthy, it would be a great thing to participate in. And in 2 years' time, or even during the study, any time that you have news to report that you're allowed to report, that more people have come, or maybe there's some participants who would be willing, if they're already so altruistic, to do the study. Maybe you might ask any of your patients, if they're called patients at that point, your participants, if they'd like to come and talk to us. I think it'd be great for people to hear from an actual participant what the experience is like. Again, to demystify it and encourage more people to step right up, right?
Thank you. I agree with everything you said, and it's been great talking to you about this.
And to you, please stay in touch by email and then come back on anytime and we will talk more. Thank you so much. Dr. Jonathan Corren at UCLA. Keep up the good work. Let's hear it for the kitty lovers. Thank you so much.